When you're going into analyzing a search result, what is that? What are the crucial things that the basic SEO who is using a third-party tool that has 1 through 10 tiles and that's all they're looking at? What's missing from that equation right now?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's actually driven us to this point is people for so long leaned so heavily on the technical aspects. You're on page SEO using your exact match keyword and title tags, all the basic stuff that you should do. You should have some solid links and do some natural link building. Let's throw that out there. But really, like in today's day and age, like you're seeing content get seeded on page one where Google thinks it should go based on how well you covered your topic. What's your topic depth? What is your link profile? But after that, everything that happens afterwards is all just machine learning. Basically, they're looking at a number of factors, and it breaks down to just a few. It's engagement and click-through rate. So I'll talk about the first one, click-through rate. So what Google's going to be doing is going to look at what is your click-through rate for your position for that query. And are you within the range of where you should be? So if you're sitting in position 1 and you've got a click-through rate of 10%, position 2 is pulling in 15%, it's going to look at that and go, oh, something's off here. This is really simple math. And what we're going to do is we're going to try position 2 now in position 1, see how they do for a little while, and they're going to get a little bit of a test, and the same thing's going to happen for them. So the first thing I'm going to look at is title tag clickability. Are you putting out there what people are intending on clicking on, right? So if you look in the top 10 results, and like it hasn't been the top 10 in a while, say it's 7, right? Say it's 7. And 6 out of 7 of them are list blogs, and you wrote a landing page for a product, and you've got a product title tag. Guess what? Yeah, you might get seeded in there, but you're gone. You're getting kicked right off page 1. So you shouldn't write a word until you read through every one of the title tags on page 1 and understand, because that's an accurate reflection of what people are clicking on the most. And it's like a cheat code, right? So it's like they're using this common word all the time. They're using lists. Oh, 90% are using a year in the title tag. If I don't use a year, I'm going to run into problems. So that's that first one, a bit of a no-brainer. And then engagement within the content, right? So you got a couple other things here that are basically just measuring engagement with the content. One is dwell time. So like a long click would be somebody clicking into your content and staying for a long period of time, and then hopefully not returning to search results. But if they do after a long period of time, as opposed to a short click where they go into a piece of content and then immediately go back to search results. So ideally what you want to do is you want to give them zero reason to go back to search results ever. You want to satisfy them beyond their belief so that they have no inclination to go back into search results and pogo stick, click on another piece of content to weave together a complete picture of what it is that they're looking for. And the way you can do that is a number of different factors. You can have really good UX. So that's usually not like a direct ranking factor, but it's indirect in that if somebody goes onto your site, you've got a minuscule font and you can't see it, I'm going right back to search results because my eyes suck. I'm going to grab my glasses in a second here because it's getting late. That's an immediate no-go, and it's an indirect factor. People are going to see people are clicking out because they can't read the content, and you're going to move down. If the query expects some sort of media, if I were to use the example keyword golf tips for women, and I click into 8 out of 9 articles, and they all have video, and then I've written a piece of content that's all block of text, guess what? That's not the expectation of the query. The expectation is I'm going to have some sort of media to accompany that text as well. Page speed, obviously, you have to keep it above some seconds. I don't remember what it exactly does, but people attention span, what is it, 1.6, 2.2? I don't know. It sufficiently fast. If it's not sufficiently fast, people will go back to search results and find something that is sufficiently fast. And then you've got your short click and your pogo sticking to your competitor content. Not good. Did I miss anything? Media usage, content depth. Obviously, this plays directly into, this is like a double whammy. So writing to a sufficient content depth, meaning you cover all of your subtopics very succinctly and but you're not becoming overly verbose, but you're doing a good job of covering all the subtopics, we'll send a signal to Google that you've covered this topic cluster very well, and it's going to help with that initial seeding. But also in the indirect way with RankBrain, people are going to stay on the page longer because, like I said, you gave them zero reason to go back to search results to weave together an answer from one of the competitors' pieces of content, right? So this one, the content depth and the content thoroughness really plays a double factor. And then lastly, understanding intent. Right? This seems like a no-brainer, but it gets missed all the time. People will find a keyword and think, I'm going to sell product with this keyword. But the keyword is a question. It's purely informational intent, right? And you go and create a product page, somebody's going to look for an answer to a question and they find you're trying to sell them golf clubs. They're going to get mad and they're going to go back to search results, short click, and they're going to pogo stick, go into another result, sends a signal, and then you get booted off. So it's really just like a few factors, I think 6 factors in total. But if you satisfy all of them, what you've really done is you've created a better experience than anybody else for your query.
Cool. And my intent is to put wrinkles on each one of these things to make sure that everybody understands exactly what you're saying with this. But overall, this is that user experience that you want somebody to be, you want your real estate on Google to be appealing enough for them to take the shot by clicking. That's they're guessing. What they read is both what they expect and they're excited about and they're interested in. They might even be done with their process. They may then want to wayfind on your own site or hit a call to action. It's what they expect in format. It's what they expect with responsiveness and speed. And it has the usability that allows them to do what they want to do. So it's that hook and then follow through, and all of those things connect. Now, I'm going to ask you just because I love that is this story, right? You're analyzing these things not to copy your competitors. You're analyzing them to do what I just said. You offer the prize, and then you follow through with the prize, right? That's how search really works. There's a lot of nuances to that. So when we get into title tag clickability, I hear so many naysayers on this. They like to point, so search engine optimization, maybe ones that have other courses, they like to point out exceptions. You commonly say there's seeding and then you get placement. Seeding, then placement over time, it's going in. But you might see a page that doesn't do these things, okay? It's bucking the trend, okay? So 2 questions would be, from your perspective, why would I see something in a search result that JDLR just doesn't look right? It's not fitting with the norms. What are the reasons? And then second would be, how functionally can I actually achieve this? How is Google achieving this? At what level are they tracking? And I'll add some color there, but I'd love to hear your perspective of the exceptions don't make the rule, right? So be sure you don't listen to search engine optimization advice that points out exceptions as the rule. So how do you think about that with the title tag clickability? Like, how do we go when you can point at number 6 isn't like the others, right?
Yeah. It's not like the others, but yet it's still on page 1.
How do you
the best way that I can figure it is there's still remnants of the old school ranking factor that still play a part. A good example that I always come back to is I look at and say, why the hell is Forbes still ranking on page 1? Like whenever I search for something, I'll see something pop up there. I'll click into it, bombarded with ads, can't find the content, kills my laptop, and I can't even scroll. I struggle with that. And I go, how did that rank there? In the old school days of Google's weighting the algorithm, like link profile matters a lot because it is really mechanical and very easy to quantify. Quality and quantity is a super easy thing to quantify. And taking these signals just makes sense. And that hasn't gone away completely. So I'm saying, yeah, things are going to shuffle up and down based on user signals. But when you've got things that are so strong, and this is still a strong ranking factor, Forbes is still a rankable website, right? You're still punching uphill against them, right? So you really, as me not Forbes today, I have to punch uphill and I have to do all of the things in my checklist to beat them because they still got that leg up, and that might change in the future. You keep hearing these rumblings about link values going to start to go down. Who knows if that's actually true? I think it might be, because it doesn't necessarily represent satisfaction of the searcher all the time, and especially in this instance. But until then, yeah, it's still a factor. And I think the way I see it is that's probably what's happening.
Yeah.
So that's your first question.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I'll add commentary on that. So yeah, absolutely. Authority, topic-based authority. I like to think of this as that might be the iceberg, the top of the iceberg, that old imagery where it's the top of the iceberg and then there's stuff below it. The stuff below the water you might not be thinking about. So when you are at a particular level of topic authority, which is topic site or topic site section combination, you are granted the ability potentially to more freedom in that respect. So you really need to analyze this stuff at the page level, the search result level, but also look at what other breadth and depth of coverage they have, right? You may not ever be able to get there with one page based on who you are. You may need the entire cluster. You may need the entire purchase funnel or research funnel covered. So be thinking about that when you're looking at a SERP. The SERP is one step. You may need to dive in and look at what else they've got that allowed them the ability. They had the invite to the party underneath the water, and so the iceberg could show up. Just be thinking about it from that. Nice. And I love your example about intent mismatch on a page, right? Where it was, this is a question. It was, how do I correct a left eye dominant putting stance, right? And then you land on it. Buy this putter. That's not actually what I was asking. I was asking if I should close one eye while I'm putting. By the way, I have to do
exactly.
That. I have to do that in case you're wondering. I have eye dominance issues on putting. Putting tips by Jeff. But yeah,
part of the course.
Yeah, go check that. So I like that example because you may need a product page for your golf clubs. You also need an answer to this question, and maybe every other question. My old saying is, you don't deserve to be there at the bottom of the funnel unless you're there at the top of the funnel, right? So you're going to have to cover that entire buyer journey to be there for the product. Don't try to smush them together and trick the system, right? Because it's going to lead to pain. The only way you can get away with that is if you are ultra high authority. And those people are just doing that because they can get away with it. It's a great example of what you said in your last comment about Forbes, right? Or about, you see that, and then you see people try to emulate them. Like emulating Forms, emulating Healthline, emulating Amazon. By the way, don't do that. That's the quickest way to destroy your company, because they're doing things that you're not allowed. It's not that they're black hat, all of them. It's not that they're gray hat. It's not that they're not. It's just, it's not best practice for what you will have to do to be successful. That's key.
Yeah, that's really well put. I love what you said about having the top of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel covered. And by the way, when you do that, sure, you got to talk about golf putters and you want to sell golf putters at the same time. What you're doing is you're writing a blog post and a product landing page, and you're building up topical authority for your entire website. So and on the blog that you've created, you've got an opportunity for a micro conversion, a newsletter download, an ebook, and then you can nurture them to a point where they're going to buy a golf club on your commercial landing page. So like, it behooves you to create both of those, because you're getting it from the top and the bottom.
Yeah, and it's on the money. I think Ashley Gattuso's quote, who's a peer of mine, a friend of mine, she says, "It's content please, don't content tease." You got to give them what they actually expect, and that's going to build the trust so that they will click on that CTA, so that they will build and get down further in that funnel. Don't try to trick Google into a bait and switch on your page. It's just not great. It's not going to have that, or something that's unnatural, which gets into kind of your commentary about content depth and how that dovetails with trust, authority, but expertise and experience. And so how do you describe how building a great page that tells the story of expertise means do X, do what? What's that process?
Yes. I think when I say expertise, I think that implies that it should be written by somebody that understands the topic very well. and they're not going to scrape the web and take notes like I did in high school when I was writing a book, trying to find little and then changing around my own words. It's figured that out. So it's trying to find people that have firsthand experience with original thought. I think the expertise is original thought, original turns of phrase, and it can pick up on that. So when we talk about content depth, we're talking about two things. One is taking your own perspective and your own experience with this and explaining it in a way that somebody's going to understand, whilst covering all of the subtopics somebody would expect when they search for something, right? So if I was trying to rank for baseball, which I would never do, I would go through the top results and I'd say, okay, I'm going to try to figure out what are all the main things that everybody needs to know about, topics A through Z. I'm going to say, all right, I need to talk about the rules. I need to talk about different teams. I need to talk about history. I need to talk about in popular culture, all that kind of stuff. And therefore, what I'd have is a blueprint on everything that people expect to be written about. And then what I do is I'd use my expertise to cover every one of those topics. Everything that I know about that, I'm going to write about it. And if there's something that is somebody else's idea, I'm going to cite that idea. So that's my idea of creating something just out of your own brain and pulling in that expertise, which kind of rules out ChatGPT, doesn't it?
Hey, you're not Cliff, so don't write Cliff's notes. That's my, because
True.
guess what? The companies who are writing Cliff's notes versions of concepts aren't going to have longevity. They're going to have a look at me, I'm winning. But without that power, you aren't that expert, right? Without that unique differentiated value. That's why I love you're showing a MarketMuse. But when you show a MarketMuse screenshot on your slides, it stays on the screen for a really long time. See? But no, it tells the story of if you weren't the expert on eczema diets, as is in your example, you would have no idea the difference between dyshydrotic eczema and why fatty fish would be involved in that. Okay, I'm not an expert. I have no idea why those things are, nor what that word means. I always use the example because I have 2 Boston Terriers. If you were writing an article and you have no idea what you're doing, right? You would not understand breathing problems. You wouldn't know the word brachycephalus. You would not know about certain issues that they have with their health. You can't go write that article, okay? Even if you skim and write, you're not going to provide that level of differentiated value. Same thing here, unless you don't. And the fact that you have eczema isn't enough to make you the expert, because what else do you need? You need a site that's telling the story that you are that expert. So I love the 1-2 punch that you're talking about, where you're writing a comprehensive article that's presenting a point of view and differentiated value, but it's within a site that exhibits that expertise, allows you to be successful. You're not just long tailing. And the question I'll ask before we get into some of the listener questions, by the way, thank you for sending them. I've got my phone blowing up on Twitter. I've got good ones coming in. I'm going to get to them all, trust me. Is just that. It's to say, how do you think about this for individual pages? How do you think about this for collections of pages? Would be one question that I want to get to. So,
how do I think of the
content depth? Yeah, content depth. And do I cover this on one long page? When do I cover it with a collection of pages?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're talking like building a cluster of expertise around a particular topic. Generally, what I do is pretty simple. Like the highest difficulty and the highest volume, the toughest keyword that I have to rank for that I want to own is going to be my pillar page that I built a bunch of support around it, right? So if I want to rank for what is a newsletter, I'm going to write a long form piece of content around everything. What is a newsletter? And I'm going to link out to a whole bunch of supporting pages. So it's like newsletters for B2B, newsletters for B2C, all the stuff. And each one of these is going to serve as like a support structure for this main overall theme. And what I've done is I've created this massive pillar, and I've supported it with all of these topics that somebody, if they were interested in newsletters, would read through this content and they would click on it and they would get all the information that they needed, all within my hub, right? So I've got this super in-depth hub. So that's the way I think of it, is the most difficult one as like the centerpiece, and then everything else around that is a support. And the most important thing that I always tell people that still seems to get lost in the old school way of thinking is when people get their keyword list and they say, these are our quote unquote target keywords, and we're going to use these in the site. Sites don't rank for keywords, pages rank for keywords, right? So what I teach is every time you find a keyword that looks great, like this perfect white space that's not addressed yet, you've got decent search volume and low difficulty, you want it. Create a page for that keyword and write the hell out of it. Cover that topic cluster as well as humanly possible for that keyword, and do that every single time you create a piece of content. And with the thought being that page alone is going to rank for that keyword when somebody searches it, they're going to land on that page and have zero reason to click on somebody else's result. So that's how I set up an architecture in my head.
I love it. One thing I always challenge people to say is require it. Require the writer to put a two-liner. Why is this page better than any other one on the internet? If you can't say that, it's not. It's just not. Answering the question too, I love the way you said it. It's considering difficulty. And so in MarketMuse, we have a personalized metric for difficulty. That's going to dictate how much content's needed. If you're a small site, you may need to write a pile, 50, 100 content items to start to punch in competition. So you may need to you may need a long form all in one and the subsections. You may need it for B2B and B2C. If you're super big and you've already wet the well with a lot of this power, you may be able to knock it out with one page. So it depends on who you are. It depends on that personalized metric for difficulty, not a general data point for difficulty. So be thinking about that. The answer isn't one size fits all. You may go build that 20-page pillar and support structure and it won't work.